Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. So, this past weekend, I went to just a local tournament, 3 games, one day. And I took a pretty heavy Saurus warrior list. And I'm not going to lie, it was pretty fun. So, you might remember in the last video, I gave a sample list, talked that I might take that one to a tournament. I ended up switching it up just a little bit. Of course, the night before the tournament, you always got to change your list. That's part of the fun. So, I'll talk through my list right here. I did switch out the Slann for a Troglodon, and what other changes did I make? Oh, I threw in a Elfwind's Thorns because I'm just really liking that unit right now. I haven't finished painting it up yet, barely started, but it's a lot of fun. So here's my list. We're taking Seraphon in Starstrike Star Host. So Starstrike does let you do some extra skink movements in your shooting phase. That's really good, especially for units like your Hunters of Huanche and your Raptidon Chargers. Those benefit extremely well from this extra movement. In this tournament, I would say it did pretty good. I had a couple times where I needed to move my bolas a little bit extra because of a redeploy or something. That really helped me make sure that they were still in range. Raptidon Chargers also kind of the same thing when you're sending them in. A lot of times the opponent knows who you're going after, and they'll do a redeploy. So at that point, it's kind of a wash, their redeploy, because you also get a D6 move and in that shooting phase after they've redeployed. So really helped out there. That's the sub-faction we took. We've got a Skink Oracle on Troglodon, and that is my general with Incandescent Retresses and Being of the Stars. So this is your, unkillable Troglodon loadout. So it's going to heal because of Incandescent Retresses and because of its War Scroll spell at the beginning and end of every turn, which is just awesome. That makes it really hard to kill. Being of the Stars makes it to where Rend doesn't matter. So it's always going to be on a 4-up save, and that's really nice. I was planning to play this Troglodon as kind of a flanker piece, an objective grabber, not necessarily a support piece like you would traditionally use the Troglodon as. It's not really its role anymore. It's only a one-cast wizard. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, so don't send it into something that you want to kill. But it's good enough at taking out like the flanker units. If you have a small unit on the side of the board that can go grab objectives, it'll take that out. So it's also good at helping other units take an objective, which you may not need too much in this list, but with its ability to reduce somebody else's control and it being in control 5, it can kind of help out there. So a nice little piece. I did not. It never died this tournament, so that's good. It did mix it up a little bit. Got into some combats. The Troglodon continually disappoints with how much damage it can do because it cannot do much damage, but it will survive for quite some time. The 2 Hunters of Huanche units are just fantastic units. These will ambush in 9 inches away from the opponent and then have a shooting attack that's 10 inches. So keep that in mind. A redeploy of anything will literally make it to where they can't shoot. So if your strategy revolves around them, you almost have to have Shadow Strike just so you can move them closer after the redeploy. But what they'll do is on a 3-up, you can reduce somebody's charge by an entire dice roll. So instead of the opponent rolling 2 dice on their charges, now they're only going to be able to roll 1 dice. This pairs extremely well with Elfwind's Thorns, which is my Regiment of Renown I took in this list, which is pretty fast. They can move 12, they can shoot 12, so they have a 24-inch threat range, or they can teleport before or after they've shot, so that's kind of nice. And then also a D6 move after they've shot, so a lot of movement here with this unit. But their big trick is however much damage the archers in this unit do, you're going to reduce their charge by that much to a maximum of 6. So it's quite likely, and it happened quite a few times in this tournament, where I'm going to reduce your charge by 1 dice and then reduce that 1 dice roll that you have for your charge down by another 6 to where that unit literally cannot charge. So I'm looking at doing this to the enemy's big hammer unit. If they have something that I'm afraid is going to do a lot of damage, then I'm going to hit them with the bolas and Elfwind's Thorns, so I'm not worried about them. And it works great. Throughout this entire tournament, it worked great. I will say with Elfwind's Thorns, If you don't get their teleport after they shoot, it goes off on a 3-up. They can teleport away to some terrain. Generally, I would lose them in combat on the opponent's turn. So if they didn't get that teleport, they're probably dead. That's a lot riding on a 3-up, but that's kind of how the Hunters of Huanche are too. They come in, they do their attack, and then they're probably going to die the next turn to whatever the opponent has. So it is very much a get as much mileage out of them as you can in one turn, maybe two if you get the double, or a lot of these, the opponent would take the double and they'd still have those debuffs on them going into the next turn, and that's so nice to have to force them into that decision of, do I take the turn and these buffs stay on me and I can't use my hammer, or do I give the turn to the opponent and then he gets to reapply these things to me? So a great decision point to force your opponent into. In my General's Regiment is also the Raptidon Chargers. I like this in my General's Regiment because I can give them +1 rend to whatever I think I'm going to be attacking with this unit. So if they're the unit I want to hit with my hammer is, let's say, cavalry or something, I'm going to give them +1 rend to cavalry. So if it's infantry, etc., etc. So that's in the season rules. So I like the Chargers. They did extremely well. They would do quite a bit of damage for whatever I hit. And I didn't play them real aggressive because I wasn't taking the asterism for movement, not with this list. We'll talk about that here in a second. And so I would play them a little bit more cagey. They would wait, and then I would charge them in when needed. Instead of kind of being like your Alpha Strike, they're more of your counter charge unit. So I'm looking at what opening you're giving me, and then I'm gonna shoot them in there and attack. My second regiment is the Saurus Astrolith Bear. That gives all the infantry around him a 6-up ward. And then if you cast a spell within 12 inches of him, it'll add 3 to control score for units that are within that range of him as well. So generally, my Troglodyte might be in range to cast that spell. And it's pretty nice. It helps the warriors be even tougher to remove off an objective. That 6-up ward also helps them. And I do have 50 Saurus warriors in this list. So it's a pretty thick list there with that many bodies. And you can kind of see in this picture here what my objective is go stand on circles. That's the thing. I just want to go stand on the circles. And they're very good at doing that. You can see here an illustration of 20 warriors can fit on an objective here. And they can fit on half the objective. You even have a little bit of room to spare. Why that's important is because my asterism I'm going to be taking every turn, if the battle plans allow it, is going to be Quetzal the Preserver, so that the opponent is -1 to rend versus me if I'm wholly in my territory. So I want these warriors on the objective, but in my territory. And so it's important to realize that 20 warriors can fit on the objective and can fit on only half of it. So because a lot of battle plans have an objective right there on the line. So Realm Shaper Engine wasn't really that useful, sadly. Lore of Celestial Manipulation. I really wanted this for the -1 rend, but that never really came up. So I think the spell I cast from this the most was Comet's Call to do mortal damage to other hordes. I don't think I ever used Run and Charge because it's not really a Run and Charge army. It'd be useful in the Raptidons, but the way I was playing them, it was usually turn 2 I was getting them in, and at that point you don't really need it. So Comet's Call was good. That did quite a few mortal wounds for me. And then Primal Energy, which I was taking this with the intent of casting the Life Swarm for the Troglodon just to make it more annoying to kill. But I don't think I ever cast that. It was really just Gnashing Jaws all tournament. Just casting Gnashing Jaws a lot of times in the opponent's turn. And then I'd still be free to cast something else in my turn. So that's the idea behind the list. It's 3 drops. It's exactly 2,000 points. So it was pretty fun. It did pretty well. Warriors were tough, and I think everything kind of had a roll. I could easily see switching out the Troglodon. That's probably the thing that didn't really do the most. If I was just off the top of my head, I think you could easily switch the Troglodon for a Carnosaur with the same loadout, and it would probably fulfill the same role, but just better. And then maybe switch out the Astrolith for a Starseer. And really, you're kind of running the same list, but now you've got 2 casts. You'll have a chance for some 5-up wards when you need it. And you've got a big monster that's actually going to do damage. So I think maybe that switch wouldn't be too bad. End up being the same points. All right. So game 1, we're playing Battle for the Pass. Now this one, luckily I had as I was prepping this list, I had looked at a couple battle plans. This is one that I had looked at because I was interested to see how many warriors could I fit on this one, because I want to stay in my territory, but I need to get as many on this objective. So you see this objective here that's on the line. There's no way to fit 20 warriors on that objective and stay in my territory, but 10 works. And so luckily in my list, I do have this unit of 10 Saurus warriors, which are, they're kind of supposed to be some battle tactic, grabbers, a little bit slower than my other stuff, but that's kind of what I've taken them for. But they worked out perfect for this. So on this, 1/4 of an objective that I have to work with, 10 warriors fits there perfectly. So that's their plan. I end up deploying them here so I can get them onto that objective as soon as possible. Over on this objective, I know that I can fit 20 warriors here on this objective. And so I lined up 20 here. And then I was just going to camp my other 20 on this objective. Never move them. And you will never get this objective from me, because this objective is worth 5 points for the opponent. And then I was hoping at some point I could shoot my Raptidons and Troglodon over here to grab this one as needed. Troglodon was going to kind of support this one, and then Raptidons are going to go where they're needed. So that was kind of the battle plan there. I felt good about this one because I do have a big territory, but I feel like I was prepared for this battle plan. So I'm going to be playing against Jody and his Flesh Eater Courts. We had played in the last tournament, and he beat me by just like 2 or 3 points on that one. It was a really close game, so looking for a rematch here. And he brought a little bit different list. He had a bunch of ghouls before. This one he still had Usharon, which Usharon has done a ton of damage to me last game, and he did pretty well this one. Had a turn or two where he did a lot of damage. But Usharon, and then Crypt Flayers, which are like his bodyguards, and then a small unit of Crypt Flayers, which pair up well with this Gore Warden to do like some teleportings and battle tactics and things like that. So the big hammers here were going to be the Morbeg Knights. He had 2 units of reinforced Morbeg Knights. So those were the ones that I was like, I need to debuff their charges because I don't want them charging me. They'll get bonuses on the charge. So let's see if I can totally debuff one and then put another one at 1 dice. Then he also had a Vargulf Courtier, which was actually a really good tech piece. This thing was quite annoying. It would charge in, it would do some damage, never really a whole lot of damage, but then it would like skip out of combat before you ever had a chance to attack back. So this thing was just like popping in and out all over the place. I really like that unit. I wish I had something like that. That was really cool. So just a fantastic thing. It made me have to play some things differently because I knew it would be hopping out of combat to different places. So here is deployment. You can see I have put one big unit over here. They're going to be going towards that objective. And then I've got my 10-man block, my Troglodon, my Elthwin's Thorns, and then my unit of Source Warriors here that are going to grab this. I had my Raptidons back behind here. I didn't really like them being all the way back here, but it was just kind of forced that way based on the terrain and the map. So you can see his big unit of Morbeg Knights here. Another one here. I think his Vargulf is like somewhere right in here. Flayers and Usharon right there. So he outdropped me. He was a 2-drop. He took first turn. And I thought for sure he was gonna send one of these units just right into the middle of me, grab this objective with like a Vargulf, send these guys over here or something like that. Maybe the teleporting guys. He wasn't that aggressive. He just barely towed on the objective here, barely towed on this one here, just to grab those. I went ahead and cast Burning Gnashing Jaws right here in front of Elthwin's Thorns to make sure he couldn't get to them in the charge phase. That's kind of what I was worried about. So I counter cast that to keep them protected. But he just grabbed the objectives, and So that allowed me in my turn. Oh, he also did take the lands back here on this terrain piece, and I got a decent redeploy on these warriors, and was able to prevent him from actually capturing that. And so it denied a battle tactic. We denied each other's battle tactic constantly in this game. It was crazy. But that redeploy was big because then in my turn, I auto ran them this way, but I could not get them all on the objective. Because I'd had that redeployed backwards a few inches, I failed getting all of them on the objective by 2 models. So that was frustrating. So I wasn't getting my +1 to save from 2 Saurus warriors. Oh, that was frustrating. Anyway, so that's what he did in his turn 1. I think this is maybe this may be after my turn or something like that. Yeah, I think so. I think this may be after my turn. But you can see I got my warriors on this objective. I took those 10 over here, and I got Elthwin's Thorns up here. I think this may be going into his next turn, maybe. I think that's why I'm missing some archers, which I'll talk about here in a second. So Elthwin's Thorns hit this unit, and then these, the Hunters of Huanche, I want to still call them Chameleon Skinks. Hunters of Huanches hit this one. So this Morbeg Knight unit was down to a 0 charge, or maybe a 1 charge, which is effectively no charge at all. Because I got the -1 dice, and then I did 5 damage to them. So they were -5 to their charge on 1 dice. So literally an impossible charge. I got the -1 dice on this Morbeg unit over here. And so, both of those hammer units are going to have a hard time charging me. I weirdly had to take my Troglodon back a little bit just to prevent his Vargulf. He countercharged his Vargulf, and I kind of figured he was into these Saurus warriors. Didn't really do any damage, but what he could have done is he could have hopped out of combat within 3 of my Troglodon that was sitting here, and I had taken the Reclaim the Realms battle tactic, so it would have prevented that. So I sent my Troglodon backwards to make sure I got Reclaim the Realms, which felt stupid to do, but it ensured my battle tactic at least for that turn. So you can see my skinks after I shot. I actually sent them backwards, and I did the same thing here. My Raptidons I actually sent back this way to take on his prospector units, his Flayers and his Gore Warden. And I think I killed the Flayers in that turn, and then it took me until the next turn to kill off the Gore Warden, who kind of retreated out of there in his turn. But so the Raptidons were that way. They spent most of their game kind of flanking back that way to kill that unit, and then coming this way eventually to help out. But so I debuffed that unit. And so that was nice. I got in my Burning Head to actually do some damage here. Made sure and charged from behind so he couldn't pile in to tag my warriors or anything. So that was a good first turn. You can see, here's a picture of these 2 warriors. I just could not get them on the objective. Just didn't quite have enough movement because of that redeploy to get them there. Oh, you see my Raptidons chasing after his objective grabbers. I thought that would be worth it just because, these things are going to be scoring his battle tactics throughout the whole game. This Gore Warden was building up some points for Flesh Eater Courts, whatever they're called. And so I wanted to make sure to take those out just to limit his options a little bit. This is towards the end of the game. I think this may be my last picture I had. He had sent in, we can go back over to this other picture here. He had sent in these Flayers this way to take on these guys, to kill them for a battle tactic, and then ended up sending them this way at some point. I had Usharon debuffed with the spell, or with the -1 dice to the charge, but he was able to move far enough to be outside of 3 of these Saurus that he made the charge into them on 1 dice. He was doing quite a bit of damage, but just wasn't enough to take out the warriors and grab that objective ever. And the warriors held on, and I was able to send in my Raptidons to charge. And he made the Raptidons fight last because of his ability, but he didn't quite kill off enough of them, and I was able to hit him and then the warriors were able to finish him off. So I was able to kill Usharon, and at that point, I think the game was going to be over at that point, because I had held all 3 of these objectives for basically the entire game, and now Usharon, who had committed to this side, was gone, and I was able to finally send in my Troglodyte over to this side. The Troglodyte helped over here with these Morbegs for a little bit, and had eventually, I think we had eventually worn them down between warriors and spells and Troglodyte. I think we had eventually worn them down. And so I got my Troglodyte over here and scored his objective. And at that point, I was too many points ahead. That one is worth 5, and so I had held all the objectives. And even though we've been denying each other kind of battle tactics throughout the game, I had held the objectives for the entire thing. So a good game, a tough fight there, but the Warriors held strong on the objectives and got the win. I never did move this group of warriors from that objective, because I was like, you will not take this objective from me. Here they are at the end of the game. These warriors were standing strong. These warriors were still alive. There was like 4 left. They were capturing the center here, and it looks like we had probably about 10 left in this unit. So he still would have been able to like crush down on his next turn, and take out this and work the board a little bit, but there weren't many rounds left, and I was too far ahead at that point. So good game though. So I think we're 1-1 versus each other now. So we'll see who wins the next one. So let's see, what game is this? Game 3. All right, so let's look at, so far we've had, no, I'm sorry, this is game 2. Game 2. Game 1, I like the battle plan on. So game 1, we had the battle plan of this one with defined objectives. Okay, that's nice. Game 2 was Starstrike, which this is not a good one for my list, because my list, I need objectives. Okay, that's what makes my list work. Luckily, we do have a big deployment zone, but the objectives could fall anywhere on this. I guess statistically, most likely, it's going to fall like somewhere right in here. Okay. So that's kind of what you plan for, is you kind of plan to play towards this middle section. But, and that's kind of what I did. I deploy a big unit here. I deployed a big unit here of warriors, and then my small 10-man, and then, the filler in between to fill out the deployment zone. So that's kind of what the point was, but not the best battle plan for what my list is looking at. I'm playing John here, and he is Seraphon. All right. So we've got a Seraphon on Seraphon match, and he also has a big block of warriors. So this one may come down to where the objective falls and who gets to go first. He's also a 3-drop. He's playing Shadowstrike. He's only at 1940, so he's down a few points. I think this was the list he's been playing even before the points changes, and so I think he gained a few points from some of the stuff, and hasn't really altered the list much. So, Celestial Manipulation, also playing Primal Energy. His general is a Slann. Nothing extra on the Slann. He's got an Astaroth banner in that regiment, and then his big block of Source Warriors. He did take them as the special assignment and gave them +1 Rend versus cavalry, I think, maybe. So. And then Regiment 2 was Skink Oracle on Troglodyte, had Incandescent Retrosis, but didn't take the Being of the Stars. Took Beastmaster instead, and that's understandable because that really buffs up these Raptidon Chargers really well. So it gives them some extra movement. He did take the Asterism for extra movement on his list, which is, I think that's what it's designed for, because he has a lot of movement here. We have a small unit of Kroxigor Warspawn, and then a small unit of Ripperdactyl Riders. His 3rd regiment is Skink Star Priest with 2 units of Hunters, 1 with Dart Pipes, 1 with Bolas. I think he probably could have run the other Dart Pipes as Bolas, and that probably would have been a little bit just proxy him. Even if they are Dart Pipes, both of my units are Dart Pipes, or one of my units is Dart Pipes, so I play them both as Bolas. So he does have a very fast list, but he has a big block of warriors to tank an objective, and the Raptidon Chargers are basically his only hammer. The Warspawn will do fine versus smaller stuff, but it's not really going to take out big things. So when I'm looking at this list, I'm saying the thing I am going to focus on is Raptidon Chargers and those Warriors. If I can debuff both of their charges, then I think I'm golden. We are at a 3-drop. I did win the roll-off, so I was going to deploy first and finish deployment before he did. I don't think I have a picture of our actual deployment. I forgot, but here's one after my turn. So I did take first turn. The objective fell right there in the middle, which was perfect. And so I had lined up for that with these warriors. I did an auto run, and I got all 20 of my warriors right there on the objective. And so now it's going to be up to him to remove me from it. You can see his deployment. I think, probably got hemmed in a little bit by his Realm Shaper engine. This Realm Shaper engine can be so annoying sometimes. I played mine a little bit further back, and I put my warriors out in front of it, where he had his Croxagore out here in front and his warriors behind. So his warriors kind of had to work their way through this small pass to really get into the game. So I think in this case, the Realm Shaper engine kind of hampered his movement a little bit. But his Raptidon Chargers were set up over here on the left side, and mine were kind of set up behind my Elthwin's Thorns as a block in case I needed them. But I knew I wasn't going to charge them turn one. I did bring in some Hunters of Huanche. I think they were over here. You just can't see them because of that pillar. And then my Elthwin's Thorns all hit his Raptidon Chargers and got a good roll. we did 6 damage, and we got the 3-up. So he was on a 0 charge. So it was -1 dice and then -6 from his other dice, which is just that's what you're hoping for. That's beautiful. So now I've taken out his main hammer. These hunters were aiming for these Croxagore because I knew that they were going to be the first thing that was going to charge me, but I failed on the 3-up there. Didn't really do any damage to them, so that's fine. I think I did Reclaim the Realms maybe for this first one. I tend to do that one a lot with this list because you have so much stuff dropping down all over the place. My Elthwin's Thorns, I did get the 3-up teleport, and I teleported him back to this column, which was actually kind of a mistake because that was within range of his Realm Shaper engine. So on his first turn, he did quite a few mortal wounds to the little hero guy, and if I had taken one more round of that, he would have died, and then that whole battalion Regiment of Renown thing is useless. So from then on out, whenever I teleported them, I just teleported them back to my Realm Shaper engine because we were 24 inches away from each other, so that kept them safe. So on the teleport, I got to remember not to teleport it within range of a Realm Shaper engine because that almost got him killed. Nothing else too significant here. Troglodon was we had joked about beforehand, if our Troglodons get in a fight, that fight will never end because they'll just continually heal each other. So we kind of lined that up. I don't know if we were both intending to ever charge our Troglodons at each other, but I think we kind of wanted to do it. After into his turn, let's see, I countercast the Jaws here, and he pulled his Raptidons back and started rallying them. He kept rallying quite a few of them. He kept getting them back, but every time I would have a turn, I would send in my Hunters and the Elthwin's Thorns to debuff them again. I'm sure that was quite frustrating. Sorry, John. But he kept pulling them back, rallying them, and then I would just keep debuffing them. So it was pretty brutal. He moved in the Croxagore and the Troglodon, both charged my warriors with them. Couldn't make the charge with these warriors. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think he had to run them or something to get them out of this little area. I think that's what happened. And he sent his Ripperdactyls after my Hunters of Huanche. So like most games, you throw down those Hunters, and if the opponent has the next turn, then they're probably just going to kill them. Even with the -1 to charge, there's going to be something else that's going to be out there. So roll those 3-ups so you get your debuffs. He doesn't really do anything against these warriors. He was able to get the plus extra damage because these Ripperdactyls were in combat, but I all out defensed the warriors, and at only -1 rend, I was ignoring that, and then I was rolling 3-up saves. So the warriors did as they needed to do. +1 save. Actually, I don't even think I had to do all out defense because they were +1 save from the objective. They were -1 rend from Quetzal the Preserver, and so I didn't even have to do all out defensive versus them. I think I may have done it against the Troglodon just because I had the extra command points or something. But all right, that was the end of that turn. I don't think I have too many other pictures for some of the other turns. I have one more picture here in a second. But basically what happened was on my turn, I send in the Jaws into the Troglodon. I send Raptidons into the Troglodon, and we end up killing off the Troglodon and the Croxagore eventually. These warriors come up here, and then his objective falls over here in turn 3, and mine literally falls right on my Saurus Warrior 10-man block over here. So I feel like I got pretty lucky with where the objectives fall. I think this is why you don't see this one in too many like major GTs, because it's so random. Because, depending on where these fell, if one of them had fallen right here for him or something, it would have been a lot harder for me to grab that one. Not possible, because eventually I do kill off his warriors, but it would have been a little bit more difficult. So I've got this one locked down. I start running these warriors over here. They do have to get out of my territory. They never really get wholly on that objective or anything, but they do run over there and eventually get there. He eventually does get some his Raptidon chargers. They charge into this burning head that's right here, but I was able to pull my Raptidons back on a redeploy to get them away from the charge, and then on my turn, charge my Raptidons into what was left of his, and at that point, we kill off basically the rest of his army there. So you can see we start mixing it up here on his side of the board, and my warriors end up wearing down his warriors, and my Raptidons get the best of his. So I hit Comet's Call quite a few times, and that really did a lot of work. His Slann was not doing very well, guys. So in this game, I made the right choice of dropping my Slann and bringing a Troglodon, because somehow my Troglodon was a better caster than his Slann. He did get off quite a few spells, but it seemed like the critical ones were either failing or I was unbinding them. So there, towards the end of the game, you can see how we're kind of stretched out. We finish them off here, and then I've got that objective mogged over there and held this one pretty securely. So good game. It was a lot of fun versus Seraphon versus Seraphon. It did kind of seem like whoever was going to get on that objective first might be the winner, and I was able to get to it, get all my warriors on it, and debuff his Raptidons and really kind of take away his hammer. So everything worked to plan on this one. So good game, John. Game 3, we're playing the Vice. Another one where just an odd series of battle plans that they rolled for this tournament. And so this one I'm not too excited about. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I've played this one since like 2019 or whatever it was in the General's Handbook. I definitely haven't played it this season. And so this one's not great for me because the objectives are moving. And so I have to keep my warriors moving to stay on their objective. I can't just sit there and camp an objective. And with them starting here in the corner, I've got to dedicate something to that corner. And I don't really have anything that's fast enough to be on that corner and then come back out. Really, the only thing that I have that could do that would be like the Raptidons. And I know that I need to take out one of his flankers with that Raptidons. And that was kind of what my plan was. So I'm going to deploy kind of far back. You'll see when we look at his list why. And maybe I deployed a little too far back. So I think what I should have done is just camped my warriors right here where this objective would be. And then as soon as that's done, just start moving towards the middle. I think that would have been a better plan. So I think I'll be better on this battle plan next time. So it was good to get some practice in. I'm playing against Matt Taylor, very good player, and he's playing OBR. He's got the Mortek Ballistari, which is a heavy Mortek crawler list. He's got 1, 2, 3 Mortek crawlers. He's got 2 of these terror attack cohorts, which are your battle tactic grabbers. They can teleport, or they can come in out of ambush, basically. And then he's got a giant unit of 4 Morghast Harbingers. They have a 3d6 charge. So, unfortunately, this is a very good list versus mine, because he's fine sitting back and just lobbing catapults at me. And then his Morghast Harbingers are like the perfect answer to my tech of reducing your charge, because Harbingers have a 3d6 charge. So even if I remove 1 dice, he doesn't care. If I reduce his charge by another like 2 or 3, it doesn't matter. So a very, very good list to kind of counter mine. In fact, his tech is even built to like perfectly counter mine, because his Vok Morton and then his Ossifector and then I think his Manifestation Lord, she's taking the 1s for OBR. All of that can reduce your control by a lot. I think at one point he had me like reduce 7 to my control on an objective. So a very good list there. Just a very good counter to mine, I feel like. He also had some Mortek Guard, just to, be Mortek Guard. So the Mortek Crawlers are kind of nasty, because when they shoot you, they can also make you fight less. Okay, so now this is the thing that makes me mad. These Mortek Crawlers are cheaper than our Solar Engine Bastiladon. Okay? They have longer range. They do more damage. They also have a special ability. And, they have this special subfaction that actually buffs them. It gives them a +1 to hit for all of them. I wish I could just slot a Bastiladon into the same rules, and like the similar subfaction would just be so wonderful. But they're good. So here again, I didn't get a picture of deployment. So what deployment looked like is I had 1 big unit here. I played him back pretty far because I didn't want, if he went first, I didn't want his big catapults to just be raining fire on me until the objectives popped up. I think I should have just taken the hits and just gone with it, but maybe it would have been fine. He did make me go first. I had my Elthwind's Thorns placed pretty aggressively, to where if he was going to take a lot of shots at them, then maybe I'm okay with it, since they're not going to serve as much of a purpose this game, although they did. I'll get to that in a second. I put my Raptidons over here to answer one of his units, which was over here on the board. I slow dropped it. I did 1 drop at a time, just so I could see where all his stuff was placed, since I knew he outdropped me. I had my 10-man unit of warriors over here to grab that objective, and then this one positioned to grab the objective as it came down here. I actually placed, you can't see it here, I actually placed my Troglodyte like over here to grab this objective and then work this way towards his Mortek Guard, which were his other flanker unit. So, and both of those strategies worked good. My Troglodyte took out his Mortek Guard eventually, and my Raptidons took out his Tetric. Actually, they didn't take him out. That's a lie. What are these things called? Terratic Cohort. So he made me go first. On my turn, I charged those at his Terratic Cohort, and somehow I didn't kill them all. I left like 1 on 1 health. And so he was able to retreat that, and he started rallying it. I think he got them all back by the end of the game. So frustrating. I did Reclaim the Realms, which was really close. I almost didn't get it. I dropped in Hunters of Huanche to hit this unit. I dropped the other one to hit them over here, just in case I needed to try again. And then I got my Elthwind's Thorns, and I actually debuffed them. I took 1 dice off, and then I reduced their charge by another 4. So they were at, he would still get to roll 2 dice for them, but he would be -4. So I felt like that's not a bad play there. Like, I feel like I did about as good as I could to his hammer. I did not get the teleport on Elthwind's Thorns, which was rough, because I was going to teleport him like back over here somewhere to make sure I got my battle tactic. And he counter-fired into these Hunters of Huanche and almost killed him. I think he left 2 alive somehow. Like, he kind of whiffed on some of his attacks there from his catapults. And so he left 2 alive. Otherwise, I would have failed my battle tactic. So I pulled these guys back D6, and I know that seems silly because I'm leaving him wide open, but at least if he's going to... I'm trying to maybe bait him into charging these guys and wasting them on this. If for some reason he doesn't and I get the next turn, then I can regroup these guys for their abilities. That's not a big deal. So I brought them back. I think I rolled like a 6 on it or something. So I was able to score my battle tactic. I got max points there, or not max points because you don't hold more in this turn. But on his turn, he sent these Morghast this way, but failed his charges. He did quite a bit of damage. He killed off most of this stuff with his like catapults, but he failed his charge on the Morghast, and so that's fantastic. I feel pretty good about that. So going into turn 2, his Morghast are kind of out in the open here, and I've got my Raptidon chargers that can make an incredible charge onto those Morghast. So if I get turn 2, I feel pretty good that I'll be able to take out, maybe not take out the whole unit, but I'll be able to put a lot of hurt on those Morghast. I might have to take covering fire. If that happens and he rolls the 4 up, then we're in trouble because the Raptidons would have to fight last and they would do some major damage. But none of that had to happen because he got the turn. He took it. He took the double. And this time he got within 3 of the Raptidons, and he's rolling 2 dice, -4 still, but he makes the charge. That's not a hard charge. He made sure he had enough command points to re-roll it. He may have even had to re-roll it. I can't remember. But he gets into him. He takes out the Raptidon chargers. He does some shots on the warriors and stuff, but taking out the Raptidon chargers hurt. So as the game progressed, I moved the warriors up here onto these objectives, and he got priority into 3, and so he was able to bring his Raptidon, his Morghast over, and I think he took out some other warriors I had, the 10-man block I had brought up here to do some battle tactics with. So at this point, he hadn't really brought them down into my big units of warriors. He's kept them away. He's attacking the smaller stuff, and on turn 3, I run my warriors as fast as I can because I know the objective's coming here in the middle, and I can't quite get them there. I can't remember. Maybe I didn't have a command point to auto run them, or maybe I just couldn't get them there. The run on these guys, I ran them here too, and they couldn't quite make it. I mean, I'm touching where the objective's going to go, but I'm not wholly on it or anything. And so I think here is where, if I had been running Eternal Star Host and had a teleport, that would have been so perfect in this instance because I could have just teleported these warriors where I needed to. Well, on a 3-up. So I think that sub-faction might be pretty interesting in this type of list because you could teleport these warriors wherever you needed to go. So I might flex into that. Star Host Shadow Strike is so good for all these utility units, but getting the warriors where you needed to, like on an objective, would be so nice to be able to just teleport them. Because even if you're close to it and you're like having to use a run to try to get them exactly where you want them, if you could teleport to it, and then you don't have to worry about all that little minutia of getting every little guy on it, that would be awesome. So I might flex into Eternal Star Host. Anyway, I don't get on it, but that's not a big deal. If I get turn 4, I'm going to throw 40 warriors onto that objective, and that's the only one left. He is never going to take that from me. I don't get turn 4. He gets turn 4, and you can see this is where I was kind of left out hanging with these guys from turn 3. If I had gotten turn 4, I would have had this entire objective swarmed with warriors. He would have never touched this. Maybe I still would have lost because I wouldn't have been able to score battle tactics with my other units. I don't know. I'm not going to go that far. But I know I would have held this objective for the rest of the game. Unfortunately, this is how it ended. So he was able to get his little hero and his endless spell over there to debuff my units. And then the Morghast came here and started working on these warriors. They didn't kill it in this turn. I still had my turn. I think it took until like turn 5 for him to finally finish off these warriors. And the other warrior unit that was like right here, I don't think he ended up killing that unit. I had to send it off somewhere else to go score battle tactic in the last turn. and he had this objective taken over at that point. So I think it kind of came down to those two critical rolls going into turn 2 and then turn 4. And I think I would have had a decent chance if I could have grabbed one of those. Hey, good player. We'll figure out a way to win even if you don't get those priority rolls. So that's on me. You see my Troglodon over here tying up this catapult, and then these warriors just score and take their lands over there. So that's kind of how it ended. I think by the end of this game, the only unit I had killed of his was the Mortek Guard. The Tetric cohort, he had rallied all the way back up. The Morghast, I think I only managed to kill off maybe one of them by the end of the game. So very tough army, good movement, a lot of little tech pieces. But those catapults were just brutal. They were harassing me this whole game. They're very swingy. Sometimes they'll do a ton of damage. Sometimes they'll totally whiff. But their best ability is that fight last 4-up roll that they have is just incredible. So much utility in that in both your turn and the opponent's turn. So, all right, that's it. So went 2-1 on the day. I feel like that was pretty good for a list I really hadn't practiced with much. I'd done a little bit, but not much. So I think I might tweak it just a little bit, but I think it's pretty good. The Warriors did pretty well. They held objectives. I think in the entire game I only lost one of the big units of Warriors, and that was there in that last game, and it was just being bombarded by the catapults for 5 turns. So I think the Warriors did extremely well. They held up very, very well to the incoming damage. So I was happy with that. The Raptidon Chargers weren't exactly the best hammer. They're kind of more of a scalpel than a hammer. So you may come across some lists where if you don't get on that objective first, it may be hard to clear something off of it. And the way this list is set up, the Warriors aren't doing a ton of damage here. They're throwing quite a few dice, but it's not great attacks. So I think I could probably switch out the Astrolith, to be honest, I think an Old Blood might even work well, because then, at least for one turn, if you need to do damage with the Saurus, you could give him all-out defense, and then his ability for +1 to wound, and then you're rolling 40 dice on 2s and 2s, -1 rend, 1 damage. I mean, at least that'll do quite a bit of damage, I feel like. So maybe that's one flex. Another flex might be like a Carnosaur instead of the Troglodon, or reduce him down to just a foot hero and then use those points for some other stuff. So I'm very happy with Elthwyn's Thorns. I was very happy with the Hunters of Huanche, and I was very happy with the Saurus Warriors. So I like the list. It was a lot of fun. Warriors can work. Now, granted, this was only a 1 day, 3 games. I think we only had like 16 players, so not the biggest tournament. It's yet to be road tested at a big GT by me. Maybe that will be next on the list. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.